Well, is President Ramaphosa losing the fight to rid the country of corruption? Well, a new survey shows South Africans think corruption has worsened under Ramaphosa's leadership. This was conducted in May and June this year by the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation and Plus 94 Research. Well, for more on what came out of this Afrobarometer survey, let's bring in Jan Hofmeyr, Head of Research and Policy Program at the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation. Good afternoon, Jan. Welcome to today, and thank you very much for your time this afternoon here on ENC. Just talk to us about this survey. What's the sentiment from South Africans regarding corruption and the leadership in terms of fighting these corruption challenges? What did it show?
Yes, so thank you very much for inviting me. Maybe just one correction, and that is that the survey was conducted towards the latter half of 2021. We're currently in the field as we speak, busy with conducting the next round of the survey, for which the results will be available in January. But I can comment on the results as they came out from the survey that we've done last year. And what we've seen is that compared to previous rounds of the Afrobarometer survey, and this is a survey that we conduct every 2 years, in 2021, South Africans felt that there has been an increase in corruption from the previous year. I might have to add also that when we've done the previous survey in 2019, this was also a result that we've picked up. And so what we've seen over the years, an incremental increase in terms of the number of people who feel that firstly, that corruption is increasing, and secondly, that office holders are not being held to account for the corruption. I think the second thing that we need to say here is this is a perception survey. It is based on what ordinary South Africans perceive. And so we might have to ask also why this perceived increase, or the increase in perceptions around corruption. I think the important thing that did happen over the past 2 years was the Zondo Commission and the results that have been published. So what we've seen is that many of these alleged cases of corruption has been brought to light. It has also been published in the Zondo Commission reports. And so they're there for everyone to see. And so what we cannot say is that this was the same during the Zuma administration. So I think it's firstly very important to say that we're dealing with perception here. And secondly, also that one needs to be cognizant of the context within which this survey is being done.
Yeah, okay. Who took part in the survey? How many people did you survey?
Right, so it's a nationally representative sample of 1,600 South Africans. So when we say a nationally representative sample, it means that we sample across the country to be representative of the country's constitutive population groups. We look at the gender composition, we look at the urban and rural divide, and we're also looking at the different provinces. So when we then do the survey, we can say with a 95% degree of certainty that we trust our results, and that they could have a margin of error of about 1.5% to both sides. But these results, we are very confident of their veracity and also the empirical nature with which they've been gathered.
Yeah, I'm not a researcher, but out of a population of 60 million, 1,600, that sample seems a bit small.
That is the standard sample that one would see field research companies do sort of across the country. For example, your E-News or ENCA samples for elections look very similar. So it is possible to do this kind of survey and get to results that
the question is always asked because of to make sure that the methodology is credible. So tell me, did you get the perception, these are the perceptions, for example, in terms of numbers, is that South Africans think corruption got worse under Ramaphosa's leadership? I mean, almost 64% of those who were surveyed said corruption had increased in that past year. And this was last year, I would guess, because you did this, these results of the survey you did late last year. Currently, you are busy with the next lot of the survey. Do you get a sense? What do they want to see happening?
Yes. So I think the key issues that stand out for us in terms of how South Africans evaluate the performance of our government is firstly the question of jobs. Jobs stand central to the way in which our population evaluates government. I think we've seen over the past couple of years really difficult economic circumstances under which people live. They're experiencing that their rand does not take them as far as it used to. We've also had the impact of COVID. So people are looking for certainty and predictability in the form of employment. The question of corruption is also important as far as certainty and predictability is concerned. We have a government that has to run a very tight ship in terms of the fiscal constraints under which it works. And when one then sees instances of corruption, many South Africans get despondent. And this has got a knock-on effect again on the confidence that people have in the institutions that govern them. And we've seen, for example, dramatic declines over the past decade in the way that South Africans evaluate the efficacy of Parliament, the efficacy of institutions such as the police, such as the judiciary, for example, something that's also quite concerning. So, and in this context of uncertainty, many people feel that they need some kind of predictability. And we think that this is largely absent in terms of government policy and the way in which they communicate to ordinary South Africans.
Yeah, and finally, Jan, the presidency, how was it perceived here? I'm asking this because under Ramaphosa, the presidency has been leading a number of initiatives and against corruption, and also proclaiming a number of orders to enable the SIU to investigate all sorts of alleged fraud, maladministration, mismanagement, and corruption. How does the presidency come out? How is it perceived, its role in the fight against corruption? What did you find?
All right. So that's a very interesting question. And particularly if one looks just at the pattern of responses over the past decade, we've seen in 2010, when the survey was conducted, there was an increase in support and trust in the presidency right after President Zuma entered office. Couple of years in, we've seen that degree of trust decline dramatically as he became also embroiled in controversy around issues of state capture, corruption, etc. Then when President Ramaphosa entered office in 2018, we've seen an increase again in the support that South Africans extended to the presidency, and it sort of coincided with that period where many called it the Ramaphoria period. That has declined again, and we are down again to levels of under 50% of confidence in the office of the president.
Okay, thank you very much for your time and explanations about this latest survey. That's Jan Hofmeyr. He's the head of Research and Policy Program at the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation, just talking to us about the latest survey, whose results had just come out. And of course, the survey was carried out in the latter part of 2021. They are currently busy with the next survey as we speak. This time around, we'll find those results. We'll find out those results next year. But largely, it looks like South Africans are perceiving that corruption has worsened. It's far worse now under President Ramaphosa than it was in previous years.